Hello and welcome to another of the 2024 Google Reference Programme webinars. Hopefully you would have seen from previous webinars that we've announced quite a bit of change to the UK and Ireland's Google Reference School and College programme already in 2024. Just recently, we've published the link for you to nominate your peers and your pupils for the Google Reference School and College Awards 2024. They'll be held in London this summer, and they will see a wide range of category winners announced as we celebrate the reference school and college community. Please do scan the QR code or visit the link on screen to give us your nominations. You might have recently had an email from one of us regarding this, so to put some faces to names, let me again reintroduce Google for Education's Head of Customer Success for the UK and Ireland, Grace Kelly. And if I haven't already met you whilst discussing your own Google reference journey, my name is Ryan Evans. Now then, the reason I am sure you are all tuning in, collaboration. Delighted to welcome both Emma Tring and Chris Lickfold to this webinar now. Emma, the Digital Learning Lead at Tring Secondary School, whilst Chris is the Assistant Head Teacher. Both have been on a personal journey with technology over their careers and are both now Google certified trainers. Emma, Chris, welcome. How are you both?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, really good, thank you.
Well, thank you for coming to tell us yours and Tring's story. We really appreciate your time on this. I know Tring School started a one-to-one Chromebook adventure back in 2015, obviously utilising Google Workspace for Education. I am personally well aware of the excellent stuff going on using Google Workspace for Education at your secondary school in Hertfordshire. But I'm sure viewers from the reference school and college community from across the UK and Ireland who perhaps aren't aware of all the good practice going on with you are really keen to find out about it. So I'm sure you're going to tell us all about that journey. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand over to you both to kick off your presentation.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Hi everybody, my name's Chris Lickfold. I'm the Assistant Head Teacher here at Tring School. And it's a pleasure to kind of talk to you about our journey, our one-to-one device scheme, and kind of actually how we're using collaboration and actually working across not only our school with students and staff and parents, but also actually the wider community and the trust that we have as a whole. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information about our school as well, and just kind of introduce ourselves and actually how that one-to-one journey has worked. So we are based in Hertfordshire, and we have 1,550 students, or thereabouts, with a really large sixth form. We've got about 350 students, and we've got nearly 200 members of staff. So this is kind of affecting a lot of people across the school. We are part of a MAT. Our MAT consists of us as a secondary school. We've got some feeder primary schools, and actually uniquely, we've also got a leisure centre as part of that. We have been a Google reference school since 2016. We have been on this journey since 2015, which is a little bit scary to think it's nearly 10 years since we first kind of investigated this and looked into actually how we could bring technology into our classrooms. And the impact of that has been brilliant. And what we've seen and the kind of feedback we've had from staff, from students, and from other kind of educational establishments. And we've attracted visitors from all over the world. We've been really fortunate. We've had visitors from China, Japan, Europe, obviously the UK. I've been fortunate enough to go and speak at events in Europe and in Japan. And obviously, kind of because of that, we've then had IT conferences and events at the school. So it's really snowballed over the last few years as people have wanted to really find out about what we've done and how we've done it. Now, every time we have any discussions about kind of our journey, our impact of kind of IT within the classrooms, and in quite a lot of meetings, I'm always referring back to this impact of teaching and learning. Everything we do, any form of technology we're introducing, anything that we're doing for staff in terms of training and development and CPD, all of those sorts of things, does it impact teaching and learning? Because we're a school. Actually, everything we do and every use of it, it can't just simply be because it's cooler or it looks better or whatever. It has to have an impact. And so constantly our mantra is kind of like those 4 words: impact, teaching and learning. And that is kind of flows through all of the work that we've done and all of the introductions that we've done to different forms of technology over the last few years. We're very proud of this. We've had 2 Ofsted inspections since we went down this route. And in the last inspection, I'll be honest, our lead inspector wasn't the most IT literate of people. Other inspectors were really good, but equally, they actually really saw the benefit of what we were doing. And the feedback that we had was really, really positive. And this was actually a quote that they put into the report to say that Tring School is at the forefront of online learning. Our pupils were brilliant in explaining how they're using technology. And one of the concerns I think we had in the early days was actually how we showcase work, how we show the inspectors actually the work that students are doing as evidence of progress. And actually that worked really well with students taking their Chromebooks and explaining to the inspectors the work, explaining how they're collaborating on those documents, and explaining how the teachers are feeding back to them through those documents as well. And actually the inspectors could really see the benefit of it. So we also have an IT strategy. Obviously, the main principles, everything we're doing is how it impacts teaching and learning. But then that obviously feeds into pupil engagement. It feeds into our learning habits. It feeds into actually how we're using collaboration, how we're teaching our students the best ways of using technology, because it's also a distraction, and it can be a distraction, and it can be a distraction not just purely in a school, but in all facets of life. So actually, we're trying to educate those students to be those responsible and competent digital citizens, and actually use technology effectively, make sure it's not a distraction away from the work that they should be doing. And actually, we've built in systems to enable actually us to monitor and work with the students, but also for them to be kind of independently accountable for what they're doing on their devices as well. So those learning habits have been really important to us. But overall, our IT strategy, like anybody's IT strategy, evolves over time as well. And as more tools come out and there's more opportunities, then the IT strategy will kind of develop in line with that. And that's collaboratively done with all of the stakeholders, and actually quite often across our MAT trust as well, so that actually our strategy will feed into the primary strategies, so they can see kind of actually that 3 to 19 journey, as we call it in our school, as our feeder schools come through and the students come through into us as a secondary. So in terms of the question, how might we get our staff and students working more collaboratively? We collaborate across lots and lots of different schools, and I think that's really important, and it's important at lots of different levels. We'll talk about how we do that as a MAT with the primary schools, but equally, when we first started and we started talking to staff, I'm not a history teacher. Actually, I teach travel and tourism, so I can talk about all of the merits of Google Workspace and all of those sorts of things and all the tools we're using, but I can't tell them how to do it in history because I'm not a history teacher. And so actually, even right at the very beginning, we were collaborating with other schools and discussing with other schools how it works for them as a history teacher, and we would get our history teachers to match up with those. And we did that across departments. And actually, to begin with, we did that as face-to-face visits, but we've also done that online as well. So that actually that sharing of knowledge and that kind of pedagogy is really important for us as a school, but also to find out what other schools are doing. Now, that's obviously evolved. We obviously have the shared drives now. That works brilliantly. And actually, we have shared drives for departments within school, but we also are finding that the subject areas are sharing drives. As I said, I'm a travel and tourism teacher, and one of my best uses of resources or best things I find really useful is actually we have a shared drive for travel and tourism that has been created, and I can't take any credit for this. It wasn't me who created it, but actually being able to dip into this and share resources with other schools. And I think teachers are always really, really good at sharing resources. I don't feel within the industry there is a kind of, no, that's mine, you can't have it kind of approach. So people are willing to really share things, and actually having a shared drive across a number of different schools, lots of individuals or departments who are teaching the qualification, being able to share their resources. And actually it's set up, you do have to make a copy of them, you do then bring that into your own kind of areas, but equally you have lots of resources on hand for if you need them. And for some subjects like travel and tourism, where it's not widely available, that's really, really beneficial to all of the staff teaching it. And I know that's kind of commonplace in other subjects as well. Something actually that's come in a little bit more over the last kind of 12 months has been kind of Padlet for us has kind of come back into kind of fashion again in terms of how we're using it. When we first started in 2015, we were using Padlet a lot. And then it kind of just drifted off as we kind of, from our staff perspective, as we kind of started using other tools. Actually, Padlet's had some really good kind of updates and in terms of kind of just kind of how we would use it has kind of become a lot more user friendly. I think is probably what I'm trying to say there. And actually, again, I can't take the credit for this. Someone else has created a Padlet wall. They put on all the specs. They put in links to websites with real life case studies. They've shared resources on here. And actually, as a community, we can all add to that and we can find resources and we can put those on there, or we can make a copy of it and then add our own resources to it. So again, just being able to share resources as teachers is really, really useful. And obviously we're all kind of so kind of overwhelmed sometimes and time poor. Actually being able to dip into these sorts of things has been kind of invaluable. As I said, we're also part of a MAT, and actually the sharing of resources across the MAT has been kind of really important to us. We are still kind of like one staff across that. We're 3 to 19, and actually how we do CPD from a Tring school secondary perspective will also benefit our primary colleagues, and equally what our primary colleagues are doing will benefit us. And actually that 3 to 19 journey is important. How we kind of have shared policies is really important. So within this kind of actually the MAT work is really important in terms of that collaboration, how you share things between schools, how you actually set it up so that actually our Chromebooks used to be just from coming into Tring School in year 7. Now actually our primaries are really involved in that process and they were interested in actually how do we get these Chromebooks early. So actually now Chromebooks can be sold, or kind of the students in year 5 in primary will be able to get hold of a Chromebook. It's not compulsory at primary, but they can use them in lessons if they wanted to, and they can then use that all the way through their journey to the end of the secondary school. So actually that's working really well. We have collaboration between our key stage leads, and perfect example at the moment, we're doing lots of work between the subject leaders at primary and key stage 2 and our ASLs or our subject leads in key stage 3 here at the secondary school, and actually finding out what is it that they're doing in primary school, sharing those resources. So actually we have a smooth transition and we can actually pick up from where those students left really confidently, seeing the quality of the work they were producing. Moving forward, one of our ambitions is to actually start getting the primaries in to start using some of our resources within school. Primary schools necessarily may not always have as, don't say as good, but as advanced maybe facilities as a secondary school, which has obviously a lot more students and things like D&T facilities, food and catering facilities, or we've got a really kind of shiny new sports hall. All of those sorts of things the primaries want to be able to use, but we want to be able to work with them and actually finding out availability on timetables and collaborating on timetables and collaborating on actually how they're used is again a really useful way, and actually using the technology within that has been really beneficial. Transition again, I've kind of talked a little bit about kind of 3 to 19, but again, as we kind of have students go from year 6 to year 7, sharing those EHCPs for some of the high needs students, sharing knowledge across the schools of those, again, has worked brilliantly. And we can of course do this without Google and without collaboration in that sense, but actually it's so much easier with actually the systems that we have set in place. One thing I've not really spoken about is the relationship with the parents and other schools. And what we found actually, parents to begin with, back in 2015 and 2016, were a little bit kind of really unsure about what a Chromebook was, and there was a lack of knowledge. Since then, and obviously we've gone into COVID and we've had COVID, it's massively accelerated that kind of whole process. The relationships that we have with our parents are excellent. Their use of technology, because we have been training them as well, is kind of really kind of on board now as well. And there is a lot of collaboration between us and the parents, us and the wider community. As a school, we've got a really good reputation, not just locally now, but regionally and nationally, because of the wonderful work we've done in terms of actually collaboration and in bringing technology into our classrooms. And as we say, it's opening doors, it's opening opportunities, it's changing the way that we're able to teach our lessons. Okay, finally, I was just going to mention kind of staff collaboration. So our staff kind of, obviously, I've mentioned how they work with other schools and they work with other kind of history specialists or departmental specialists. Shared drives are brilliant. And actually, none of what we've done, we've actually forced our staff into. We train them and we support them. And Emma will talk a little bit more about that later. But actually, we've encouraged and we've hoped that things have developed organically. And they 99% of times actually have. And actually, shared drives was not something that we kind of had a directive where we said, right, every department must use them. But what we found actually, because they work so brilliantly, every department pretty much does use them, and they do share their resources, and they do share kind of actually lessons that they still might personalize and they might adapt for their individual classes, but they might just change the title of that lesson, put their initials on the end, so others can have a look at that as well. And actually, it's so powerful being able to share individual lessons, schemes of work, learning journeys with other members of the department. So actually, everybody is benefiting from that. Everybody is actually kind of seeing what other staff are doing, developing their own CPD, but equally, as I said earlier, teachers teachers are very sharing. We're not about kind of actually, that's my lesson, no one else can see it. And actually, if it saves someone else some time and actually they see something that somebody did the previous year and it's easy to adapt it, then brilliant. So having the resources, having a really kind of organized team drive or shared drive is working brilliantly for our staff as well. Okay, I'm now going to introduce Emma, who knows so much more about kind of how we're working with our staff and kind of our professional development and sharing resources, who's going to start off by looking at our staff intranet.
Hi everyone, my name's Emma Ferris and I'm the Digital Learning Lead here at Tring School. And as Chris mentioned, I'm going to carry on talking a little bit about staff collaboration and how we do that. So Chris has already talked about shared drives, which is great kind of within departments. But as a kind of whole school thing, one of the best things we've done is to create a whole staff intranet using Google Sites. And you can just see a screenshot on the screen there. And this is basically our kind of one-stop shop for all sort of staff communication and information. It has things like our staff handbook, CPD resources, training materials and information for new staff, kind of day-to-day logistics like our cover rota and our calendar. And it's set as every staff member's homepage, so it's really easy to find and really easy to use. We also have a few other key sites, and this example that you can see here is Data Central, and this is used to allow for collaboration between all staff looking at our data, essentially. We have a few other sites similar to this, so we have a subject leaders, quality assurance site, we have a student support site, and all of these build in that collaboration and allow staff to work together more easily and allow everyone to have access to all of that information. Chris already mentioned that staff use shared drives to share resources, but another thing that some of our departments do is use Google Classrooms. And you can see the example on here. So this one's set up by the MFL department. And on here, the department members, the teachers just add resources for everybody to use. The advantage to doing it through Google Classroom is that you can set it up as kind of a model Google Classroom. So it's really easy for staff to then just go in and reuse assignments. And it allows for greater consistency and collaboration as well. And we're really excited about the new feature that's coming that allows teachers to share the classwork page of Google Classroom. So we could have kind of a model classroom and share that with people to kind of allow for that even greater collaboration. We've got a lot better. One of the things we probably struggled with as a school at the beginning was kind of organising Google Classrooms. And we've got a lot better at that, I think, over the last nearly 10 years. So we're much better at having topics. So that example before, you can see that that's organised. So there's a Year 7 Spanish topic, and you can see that there'd then be one for each year group in each language. We're better at kind of adding assignment numbers to things to keep it more organised and easier for students to navigate as well. And then the next thing to talk about is student collaboration. So our students collaborate obviously with us as staff, largely through Google Classroom, and also through emails and being able to share work with us. For Key Stage 3 students, we've actually locked down our emails so they're only able to send emails internally, which we found really beneficial. They also collaborate with each other, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. One of the other things we've done, and we're big fans of Google Sites, as you can see, is create study support sites. And we have one for each key stage. And you can see an example of the Key Stage 4 study support site on the screen there. So this is linked to our school website, and all of our students have access to it. And it means that they, again, kind of have a one-stop shop for everything revision and study support based. And you can see on there that various departments have made their own subject sites for students to use and access and have kind of easily access all of those materials and revision resources. But if we're talking about students, it's only fair to let them actually speak. So we've got a couple of videos from our students to tell you a little bit more about that. So the first video is from one of our Year 9 students, Alec, who's going to tell you a little bit more about how students and staff collaborate together.
Hello, I'm Alec. I'm in Year 9 at Tring School, and I'm here to talk about how students can collaborate with staff using Google Workspace for Education and Chromebooks. Google Classroom is, if you don't know already, a central hub for tools and resources designed to help manage classrooms and enrich learning experiences. Here at Tring School, we use Google Classroom to allow staff to post work and students to collaborate with them by accessing that work and the staff leaving comments and feedback after it's been handed in. We have one Google Classroom for all of our lessons, and sometimes we also have them for extracurricular things, such as clubs. Our work is always posted on the Google Classroom. This means, even if for whatever reason we were to miss a lesson, say for an illness or a match, we could come and access it, or if we needed to do revision at another time, we can access all of our work that we've done in one centralized place. What is perhaps the best way that students and staff can collaborate is through the staff leaving comments. There are multiple different types of comments. The first one is the class comment. It allows the teacher to give generalized feedback to the entire class or add something they may have missed when originally posting the work. Then there are private comments. It allows the teacher to talk to one student in particular, as is this example on the screen currently. This means that they can give very specialized feedback that may only be for that one student. They can also put it directly on the docs and slides. This allows the student to easily see what the teacher was talking about.
And now we're here from our second video, and this is Hayden, who's one of our Year 8 students, and he's going to talk about how students are able to collaborate with each other really easily thanks to Chromebooks and Google Workspace for Education.
Hi, I'm Hayden Sisley and I go to Tring School. Thank you to Google Workspace for Education and Chromebooks for giving us the opportunity to collaborate with others more easily. We can access our work any place, any time, and it's not confined to the classroom time anymore. Now, at Tring School, the teacher normally makes an entire slideshow for the entire class. If you don't know what a slideshow is, it is an online software made by Google which makes work a lot neater and you can find it a lot easier. And you can write information in the boxes. Pretty cool. At Tring School, this teacher has made one slide per student. For the students that struggle more, they can get guidance of other students. Now, we don't just have to rely on our teachers. We can also make our own slides and keep them private from other groups. In this example, these two have made a slideshow for them. They can see live updates between them and they can share with their group members, and they can do it on any device, anywhere, anytime. But perhaps the biggest part of Google Slides is the version history. In this example, it shows who has done what edits. It's also a very helpful tip for teachers and students. For example, in my PRS class, someone didn't do as much work on the group, but tried to take all the credit in presenting. But thanks to the version history, the teachers got all the proof they needed.
Wow, thank you both. That was certainly an excellent insight into your journey of digital transformation that you've just highlighted there. For, again, as you said, Chris, for almost a decade at Tring School. So it's great to see the impact that Google for Education has had with you. Few questions now then, if possible. I've got sort of reference school and college hat on, but even perhaps a school using Google, but perhaps not even received the reference school status, or, you know, who are in their early stages of development and implementation of this, who are perhaps also tuning in. Question for you both, but Chris, I'm going to come to you first. What has been the biggest challenge over the last decade, you know, that you faced on this journey, and how have you overcome it?
It's kind of an ongoing challenge, I suppose. I think when you first start, you're concerned about staff embracing something new, upskilling your staff to be able to kind of actually take advantage of the opportunities and kind of the materials and the resources available to them. And we were really keen not to take anything away from anybody. So throughout the whole process, we're adding to kind of the tools available for them to be able to teach and how they teach without forcing anybody into it. And actually, one of the things that we realized is we need to be available. People will have questions, and when they have questions, they're going to need somebody to be able to answer them. And actually, every Thursday for pretty much the last nearly 10 years, Emma has been available, either in various locations as kind of the buildings evolved, but ultimately to answer questions that staff have. So actually, they know, actually, I've got a question, I want to be able to do this, rather than just parking it and not coming back to it or getting frustrated. They know that actually they can go and speak to Emma, and actually on a Thursday, somebody will be there to be able to answer their questions. So I think kind of giving people an opportunity to be able to kind of ask questions so that they can actually really embrace the tools that are available. But that's evolved in terms of actually staff coming into the school as well. We've realized that it can be quite intimidating. You come into this school and everyone's kind of talking maybe a different language that you kind of weren't really aware of at your previous school if you're kind of not necessarily new to the profession. And actually, we need to be able to put support in for those guys as well, so that they're able to get up to speed as quickly as possible. So it's constantly making sure that staff feel empowered, staff feel that they've got somewhere to go for support, and that they've got those opportunities to use the tools. We then end up in a situation where staff don't necessarily want to leave because they're really happy, and they don't want to, what they see as a bit of a step back in their teaching. They don't want to go back into an environment where they don't have these tools available to them, which is great for us because actually it's really good for our staff retention. And we keep really, really good staff in the school, maybe longer than we would have done previously. But it's constantly that kind of that staff engagement and kind of making sure that they have the skills and knowledge.
Awesome. And that's, you know, what you're saying there, developing a culture that people want to stay at Tring School is fantastic to you. Emma, there's a lot of responsibility probably on you in those weekly sessions, but what challenges have you faced and then overcome then?
I think my biggest one has got to be sort of staff engagement and staff buy-in. I'm sure our art department will not mind me mentioning this, but they once told me when we first started that the best thing about a Chromebook was that it's the perfect size to use as an easel. So that wasn't quite what we were expecting or hoping for. So kind of working with them over the last sort of 9-10 years, and getting them to embrace technology a bit more and kind of working towards that has really been a bit of a challenge. It is one we've overcome eventually, and we talk a lot, Chris and I, about kind of finding one thing that excites staff, one thing that makes their life easier through using technology, and using that as your kind of hook. So for that example, for our art department, they were doing lots of marking in their sketchbooks, and they would leave post-it notes everywhere. And students wouldn't necessarily understand where the post-it note was referring to, or maybe what the teacher meant by it. So we showed them how to use a visualizer to record their feedback as they're doing it, and make a video for students with post-it notes. And this was pre-COVID, and they're still doing it right up to this day, and they have somewhat embraced technology.
Excellent.
I think within that as well, and just kind of from a strategic point, just to add, as teachers and within the education, we're not very good at focusing at success. We always, within our lesson, we kind of focus on maybe the 2 kids that maybe didn't understand something rather than the 30 kids that did. And within the whole kind of the whole journey, it's about, yes, there's always going to be some staff in everybody's school that doesn't want to embrace something or doesn't want to collaborate on something. Well, actually, don't focus too much on them. Focus on actually the rest of the 85-90% who do, because they generally will sweep them up as well, and they have to get on board. So kind of looking at the positives, looking at the successes, looking at those who you are working with and you are engaging and are kind of really embracing everything, rather than necessarily those who won't. I think kind of actually they will come on board eventually.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think that's good guidance and advice to others tuning in, perhaps who are, like you said, earlier in their journeys. But credit to the art department then, who have digitally transformed since using a Chromebook as an easel. Glad to hear that's not happening anymore. You mentioned in the presentation about wider school community engagement, that it's in a good place, a great place. I always think it's great to see schools sort of opening the doors, opening the windows, if you like, for parents and guardians to see into their children's learning. What in reality are the sort of collaborations and engagements with the wider community that you're offering sort of regularly then? How can parents and guardians see that window into their learning?
Lots of different things. I suppose kind of the strength of feedback we have from our parent body is really, really strong. I mean, just simply Google Forms that get sent out to them, and the level of feedback, and actually all that data. We don't do it all at once. We do it kind of by year group. But when we get that data in as staff or as a leadership team, we then look at it all and we kind of engage with it all. And we will go through, and if there's things that we need to respond to, we will kind of look at actually what the comments were, who the best person to respond to that is, and actually we'll then contact the community, and we'll contact those parents and we'll give them a call. And the amount of times you give them a call about a comment they've made and you say, look, can you help me understand that a little bit more, or can I give you this information which may kind of get over kind of any misconceptions? And they are overwhelmed by the fact that actually it's been read, that it's been responded to, that someone's actually gone to the effort of picking up the phone. And actually that's really, really powerful. And actually it means that when you send out Google Forms and you want feedback, you get really good feedback, because actually the parents know that something is going on with it, something is happening with it. Equally, we open the doors to the school quite a bit, and we want parents to come in, and we have lots of information evenings. In the past, me and Emma have actually done lots of Google training for parents as well, because again, we've understood that there is a different language maybe that students are coming home with than they have at primary school, and they're talking about, oh, I've got to do this on Google Classroom, or I've got a Google site here, and the parents might not necessarily know what that is. And because of restrictions, i.e. you've got to have a Tring school account to log in, we want to be able to inform them. We want to be able to give them that advice as well. So we try and make sure we're as open as possible, both actually to feedback, but equally at our doors and kind of support and training that way as well.
And just to add to that, we've also over the last couple of years offered an online safety evening as well for parents, to kind of bridge that gap too, and kind of link that a bit more to digital learning.
The
Excellent.
technology is great. I mean, I was just going to kind of, you just mentioned, we could go on and on, but even like parents' evening, some parents' evening appointments can now be online. When we do presentations, we can stream them. We can stream them live, or we can record them. And actually, not every parent can get into the school building. And actually, being able to look at things online is really useful. Music concerts, all of those sorts of things. Actually, little granny up in Scotland can see what their kind of grandchild's doing and kind of be really proud of those performances. And that just makes it a lot more open.
I love that. It's a really inclusive way of, supporting the community, like you say, for that engagement from further afield, perhaps from the school. That's a really nice way of doing it. So fair play to that. I think we've spoken about the past and almost the present. Look into the future for Tring School then. What have you sort of got earmarked for future implementation?
So one of the big things that we want to look at, like probably every school in the country, is AI. And I know that the first webinar in the series with Scott Hayden was all about that. So we definitely want to learn. So Scott, watch out for an email from us. Want to learn a bit more and kind of pick your brains and see how other schools are doing it. That's probably our big thing over the next few years, I would say.
No, I think AI is such a huge thing in terms of well-being and workload, and actually just being able to understand how to use it. I think whenever we've launched anything new, we've tried to keep it simple, and actually don't launch too many new initiatives and too many new ideas. Actually, staff won't know whether they're coming or going. So for us, actually, AI will be the big focus over the next few years.
Awesome. Looking forward to seeing that rolled out with you guys. And obviously, Scott's webinar on AI and how it's been impactful on the well-being of staff at Basingstoke College of Technology is freely available on the Google Reference School and College site here. But because you also mentioned, I've made a note of it, you highlighted early on in the presentation that you've welcomed guests from obviously across the UK and Ireland schools, as well as international visitors from as far away as Asia. If a school watching this really likes what you're doing and perhaps wants to pick your brains or find out more about something, specifically Google focused, etc., would you both and the school be open to that, do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, our students are very used to visitors. We're very used to kind of actually doing tours so different schools can see it in action. And actually, we don't have a list of classrooms we go to. We actually go to any classroom. We're very open about that. But equally, we also know some schools won't actually be able to come to the school physically. So we were more than happy. Emma does lots of Google Meets with other schools as well. And we can kind of go through lots of questions that way as well. So whichever medium works best for schools, we are more than happy to kind of pass on our knowledge and also understand other schools' journeys and where they are and kind of learn from them as well.
That's fantastic. And I've flashed your contact details up on screen there for anybody tuning into this webinar to perhaps get in touch with you. Then hope you're not inundated by too many requests. But I've really enjoyed this. I knew quite a bit what was going on, but I've learned a lot more as well. It was really excellent. Thank you both so much for your time on this. Innovation, collaboration going on across Tring's community, entire sort of holistic approach. As I mentioned at the start of this webinar, we have indeed got an award ceremony coming up in the summer that I'm thinking that staff at Tring School will be they'll be keeping an eye on too. Who knows what's to come around the corner? But best practice that we share on these webinars, I think the tougher time the judges are going to have, because there's so much great work going on around the UK and Ireland. But who knows what's around the corner for Tring. But again, thank you very much for offering us an insight into everything going on. Thank you to everyone who has joined us as well and has watched along. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.